Hello, is your pet wood, fire, earth, metal, water? Tonight I'm going to be talking about five element theory. And if you're here for some animal communication, I am definitely also leaving time for that. So stick around for the Animal Intuitive Show.
Come on, all you doggies, won't you walk with me? I'm the puppet dog.
So I'm pretty excited about tonight's topic. Five element theory is, to me, one of the, I don't know, it's just fun to talk about our animals' personalities. It's something that I'm really interested in when I begin to work with an animal or when I think about my own pets. Five element theory is just a fascinating topic to me. And I think that anybody who has pets will be really interested in this. So I just was wondering if you could help me out. If you are interested in this show, you've maybe been here before and you haven't subscribed, if you wouldn't mind doing so, it really does help the show. This is how the show gets put out in front of other people on YouTube. Otherwise, YouTube doesn't promote the show. So likes and things like that and subscribing help a lot and get other people to be able to watch. So I am going to be using a little bit of a script tonight because it's just a lot of information and I don't want to rely on my memory. It's just not a good idea. So bear with me if I'm looking a little bit to the side because I have my script over here. So and as I mentioned, I am going to be also keeping with the Furry Fursdays theme, I am going to be doing animal communication tonight. If anybody's here and they want me to talk to their pet, there is definitely going to be time for that. So do please stick around. So if you're not familiar with the show is about animal communication, but we also do other things like animal massage and acupressure because those are two things I'm certified in and I love talking about them and I think they really help our pets to keep up their optimal health. It helps to promote better health. It helps to keep their immune system up and help with their just all the different systems of the body, including their emotional health. So I'm a big fan of using massage and acupressure for those things. So I am very excited to share those with you tonight. Well, to share some principles of traditional Chinese medicine, which is what acupressure is a part of tonight. So when elements, when the body becomes unbalanced, symptoms and diseases can start to develop, especially if this goes on for a long time. So the five elements help us to better understand where shifts maybe need to be made to restore balance in the body. So depending on the animal's personality, we can gauge what symptoms they're most going to be prone to. And this may actually be able to help to prevent future illnesses. And determining the elements within each animal and utilizing this ancient practice can help to treat health issues and maintain well-being and transform lives, both of the animals and also of their humans, because we know how much we love our animals and we want to keep them healthy and with us for as long as possible. So all of the elements that I'm going to talk about, they are connected, but I'm not going to go that deep into it because that is a lot. It takes a lot of time to study all of that. It's kind of like a never-ending study, actually. I have found I was not done when I finished acupressure school and I took my certification exam, and I don't think I ever will be. And that's kind of what I love about it. It's kind of a never-ending practice, and I just love delving into it, and there's just all these different facets of it. But we want to begin with the first element is wood. So I have a few little images here to sort of yes, YouTube strikes again. I had the image right here of wood, and where is it? It's not here. If you've been here before, you know what happens on this show. Things disappear. But I'll bring that up while I'm talking. My eyes may be looking over a little bit because it's on my desktop, so I had to drag it in. And if you have questions, please feel free to post those here. I'll try to keep my eye on the chat as much as possible And if I miss them, I'll kind of go back through. If I do miss them, I'll look over them. So I'm going to try to drag these images in because they do help, I think, in understanding this a little bit better. Yeah, they were on I have like a little program I use, and they're just, I loaded them up, and when I restarted my computer, they disappeared. Okay. All right. So let's begin with Wood. And so for Wood, I'm actually going to drag him over here. Just works better for me, my line of vision here, I think. Okay, so Wood, I'm using this wolf as an example. Sorry, everything's an opposite when you're looking at a screen. So Wood, I'm using a wolf for because with Wood personality, you may find that your pet is rather, and most of you probably don't have a wolf or a pet, but just apply this to your pet. Athletic, energetic, adventurous. The season is spring. The color is green. So I'm using the wolf as an example because the wolf we think of is strong, he's steady, he kind of has that movement, with that strong, steady movement. And this is a quote from the International Wolf Center website. Wolves will travel for long distances by trotting at about 5 miles per hour. They can run at speeds of 36 to 38 miles per hour for short bursts while chasing prey. Although bursts of maximum speed are relatively short, wolves can maintain pursuit of running prey animals for long distances and over rough terrain. That's a quote from the International Wolf Center website. So notice that his eyes, and I guess it's a little hard to see in this picture, but when a wolf is kind of at its optimum health, its peak health, and he's able to go after prey very well and kind of do that hunting, his eyes you think of as very clear, very bright, very able to use his eyes as part of that hunt. So sight is actually the scent organ of Wood element. Wolfcounty.net states wolves have a keen eyesight and are quick to detect the slightest movement of anything in front of them. So also think about the wolf limbs. So the nature of Wood is movement, it's wind, it's like a force to be reckoned with. When Wood element is healthy, or an animal who is like a strong in the Wood element is healthy, they have clear decision making, they're able to move well. When you think of Wood, we're not necessarily thinking of like a tree branch all the time. We're thinking green because we're thinking of nature, growth, and a green stick that's flexible. Okay, so we also want water because we want water to be part of Wood because we want Wood to be flexible, and water helps to keep Wood flexible. So when I was putting this together, I was thinking about the different things that could be helpful to all of you. Begin to think as I'm talking, like, how does this apply to my animal? Does this sound like my animal? Now, some of these are going to cross over. You're going to hear things in some of these that you're going to say, well, this sounds a lot like my animal, but so does this one. It's got like, but it's going to be which is the one that most sounds like your pet? And you might not get it completely tonight. You might even want to come back and watch it. You might want to do even a little follow-up afterward. But this is just kind of a good overview, and it might hit you right away. You might have an animal where it's just clear to you, this is absolutely my animal. Some animals also have two elements that they're strong in, or they have one that they're strong in and then one that's like almost like a sub-element for them. By the way, people have this too. So this might sound familiar for you as a human. So I was thinking about training, and springtime might be a great time for your pet to do training. In general, that might be the case. But with a wood element animal, springtime is their time. That's the wood element we associate with spring. And sometimes these elements do correspond to when they were born. So if you happen to know when your pet is born, sometimes you will see that. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward, because I have one of those with one of my animals that I'm using as an example. The wood personality does not mind a challenge. So dog training could be actually quite fun for them. In thinking about the kinds of training, maybe agility work, because they have these, when they're in a good, when they're good and balanced, they're going to have strong limbs, and they're going to like that challenge. Also thinking about like jumping for horses. Wood element animals are able to withstand just more difficult conditions. They adapt well to things, so maybe even search and rescue, maybe even a canine working dog would be good for wood element. So they have a lot of resilience when they're in balance. So let's talk a little bit about when they're out of balance. So when out of balance, wood element can become sometimes bossy. So think about the alpha that gets tyrannical or too controlling. If there's just too much wood, they're almost becoming inflexible. Like I said, they need that water. So if it's too woody, they're getting inflexible. So wood can actually be too dry, and it can like bend and snap, and they may already be adventure seeking, but they can kind of go overboard and become reckless. So watch out for that. If you have a wood animal, you want to make sure that you keep them in balance. And if you start to notice that they are getting a little bit maybe aggressive or trying to dominate those that they're coming into contact with, it may be time to do a little bit of work to help balance them out. Or you may find that this is how an animal is that you already have, and you're trying to figure out, well, why are they like this? And so part of why they're like this may be because they are more of a wood element animal. So this is something that might be helpful to you in understanding them better. The emotion with associated with wood element is anger. So these personalities can be angry if they get out of balance, and anxious too. So that is associated with what we call liver chi, because the organs associated with wood are liver and gallbladder. So liver, when we say chi is life force energy of the body. So the liver chi can stagnate and cause this sort of, like, you think of it like a building up, and then it ends up being an outburst of anger. So they may need to just recharge. They may need to just relax and be still. So that may be something that you have to kind of set up for them if they're not the type to go do that themselves. If they're the kind of animal that's just going to push themselves, they're kind of what you would think of like worker types, but they have a lot of drive, and they're just going to kind of go have like a force to them. So it's great because, especially, when we think about like a working dog, that's great. But then we have to sometimes help our animals to find that balance. I was thinking about how to help them. For me personally, I'd probably do something like set up a nice little spa situation, diffuse some essential oils, do a little massage, a little relaxing music, make sure they have enough water, of course. So yeah, I had just noticed this would be like our alpha wolf on steroids when they get a little much. They also can become compulsive, so they can be a little OCD, and also if they get out of balance, it can kind of go the other way because they can become a little bit ambivalent. Like they need a purpose. So if they don't have a purpose, this can be distressing for them. So we want to keep that in mind too. If you have a wood animal in your home, in your little pet family, you want to make sure that you're helping them be in balance. And part of that might be having them have a job, an outlet, something for them to put that energy and power and focus into. So also, these elements do also sometimes come with health issues that we want to keep in mind. Some of the health problems, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but some of the more common ones that would be associated with, and this is a fair number of them actually, for wood element would be stiffer, cramped muscles, digestive issues, TMJ issues, migraines, attention deficit issues, muscle spasms, seizures, convulsions, joint problems, tendon-related pain and disorders, toxicity issues, estrous cycle problems, and reproductive problems. So that is wood. The next one I'm going to pull up here. I'm just seeing if anybody in the chat has any questions. Okay, I don't see anything. Thank you so much for liking. I see that some people there have liked. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to go to fire element. And I didn't want to be a stage mother, but my dog Cheyenne fits this bill pretty great. She fits pretty well. So fire element. So if your pet is very like sociable, exuberant, and just has this certain joyful energy about them, and maybe they can be even a little dramatic, then they may be of the fire element type. The season is summer. Color is red, and we associate it with hot weather. So in the organs it's associated with would be, we're thinking heart and small intestine. And in traditional Chinese medicine, the heart houses the mind, or Shen, we call it Shen. And with these animals, when they're in a natural sort of balanced state, they can be very lovely. They can be very sociable, flexible, warm, and pleasant to be around, heartwarming to be around, and joyous. That's kind of the word that we associate with them when they're in balance. Now, they can be very affectionate, and they can be great with giving and receiving affection. They can be a little round in the middle. That's the shape, with sometimes they say like a pointy top. So take that for what you, however you envision that. So when the Shen is in balance, the mind is in balance, they're very much in touch with their mental and emotional functions. When they get into a state of imbalance, though, there can be too much fire. What that can look like is that they're too excitable. Like we're almost getting into, when you think about mania, they're just like all over the place. And I think about this with my dog. She actually did this the other day. So she is generally like this, Cheyenne. She's a very sweet dog. And she like loves to trot around the neighborhood. She loves to meet people. She loves to meet other dogs. She loves to play with other dogs. But she also can get too excitable. And when they say mania, what we mean by that, because I know that probably a lot of people would associate with that with like in humans, like mania but I'm talking about like she heard a door. I think she thought somebody was coming in because I knocked on something, and she completely overreacted to it. I mean, she like spazzed out and like just started, she was barking, and she made this sound. I don't know if I've ever heard her make it. It was like this squeal. Like, she's 8 years old. I've never heard her make this sound before. And it was just like over the top. And she was already worked up, I think, because there had been some thunder and lightning. And so that's her getting out of balance. They can also become overly affectionate if they're out of balance. So we've, all met these dogs that, you come into someone's home and they're like all over you and you're kind of like, oh my God, I like dogs, but, can you back off maybe a little bit? Or can you call your dog off? And they're not there to hurt you. They're just overly affectionate. They can also, when they're worried, they can get worried. So they can have heart palpitations. So they can become easily startled. Just what I was describing with Cheyenne when she heard that knocking, that's her to the T. She can become easily startled. So in other words, when something like that happens, we kind of think that we think of it like they're not able to, they have inadequate fire to provide alertness. I hope that makes sense. Some of this stuff is a little bit like nuanced, and it's a little bit like, you kind of have to sit back and think about it, and then you're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'm also a slow processor, so some of you may be like getting this really quickly, but for me, I had to I still do have to think this stuff through. So when a fire animal, this is how I think about this when it comes to animal communication, actually. When they're not able to speak up, a fire animal, that can be really difficult for them. So to me, that's really valuable to know if you have an animal that needs that and needs you to be able to understand them. Animal communication may be very important to an animal like that. So they can be a little airheady too, and that's exactly what she's like. Like sometimes if the fire needs like substance to burn, think of it that way. So if they lack substance, there's just maybe there's not enough fire going on. So it's kind of like they can just be airheady. That's the only way I can kind of describe it, like a dog that's sort of distractible. And strong emotional connections these animals do tend to have normally, but if they're out of balance, they may become sort of like shut off actually, because they're almost too vulnerable, because they're too sensitive. So think of like their heart being too sensitive. And like I said, anxiety, agitation, they can get into a frenzy. They like to be pampered. They like sort of sensations, like being petted a lot. And, that could be something that could help them quite a bit for you to have that like physical contact with them. So they can be very strong, but as I said, they can be too strong. Difficulty with boundaries. Separation can be difficult for them. So think about that as far as separation anxiety with COVID. Some people are going back to work. Think about how that might affect your fire animal. They need stimulation. So if you were to leave an animal like this alone, think a lot about how to help them in that situation. Do they need to have music on? Things like that to help them while you're away. Also watch their sleep. That would be a sign that they're out of balance. If you're seeing a lot of dreaming where you're thinking maybe they're not getting fully rested, that could be a sign of this like Shen disturbance, SHEN disturbance, the mind disturbance. That can be a clue for you. So health issues. They can suffer a lot of nervous system overwhelm at times. That can come from just like overstimulation, overabundance. As a fire individual, so think of it this way: a fire person would feel good being around other people, but then it could be overload and they need to go at some point to recharge. Maybe they mostly want to be around people, but then they have to recharge. So this could be the situation with your animal. They may need that too, and you might have to incorporate that for them. Rashes, heart palpitations could be an issue. And think of that as like fire kind of whooshing up, too much fire. They can have digestion issues, absorption issues in the digestive tract, like not absorbing the food properly, cardiovascular disorders, brain or nervous system disorders, also that TMJ, tension and pain. So just help them to rebalance. They like beauty, so a beautiful environment can really help these guys, and make sure that they're not overdoing it. They are the life of the party, and they like excitement and all of that, but just make sure that they get their downtime. All right, so that is, that's pretty much fire. Yeah, I think I got everything. Did I miss anything? Okay, so next we have Earth, and Earth is associated, it's interesting because Earth, so fire is like summer. Fire is summer. We associate it with summer season. But Earth we associate with late summer. So it's kind of what we're getting into soon, like late summer, late August, around then, like early September maybe, before autumn sets in. So if you have a pet who's very sweet, nurturing. This is reminding me of my picture. That helps you kind of envision this. So sweet, nurturing, likes to be kind of chill, likes to be, there we go. So this is the mom here, the kitten, the cat mom, is how I'm representing Earth. Compassionate, loving, nurturing, supportive, also kind of like a peacemaker, think of. Very relaxed. This may be that you have an earth element animal. Earth element is associated with late summer, harvest time, so it's time to collect. Yellow is the color. We associate it with the organ would be like, we think about the mouth, the lips, also muscles and flesh. I'm sorry, the organ is spleen and stomach officially, but it's also associated with the mouth and lips, and also the body tissue is muscle and flesh. So they're very good about sharing, very good about social situations. So I also was thinking about when you're adopting animals or bringing animals into the home, with thinking about your other animals that are already in the home or the people that are in your home, how you could incorporate 5-element theory into this. So if you're bringing an animal like this into your home, they're going to be very good about, or you have an animal like this into your in your home, they're going to be more likely to be more welcoming to a new animal, as long as that new animal is going to be easier to deal with. But they do like balance, but they're very good with peacemaking. So they're going to want to maintain peace. That's a characteristic of theirs. And no offense to, like the fire and the wood, but they're a little bit more able to read the room than those. They're more intuitive, I guess, in that sense, I would say. I would see them as being very good therapy dogs, because they're able to read the person. They're in tune with the people. What does this person need? How can I be supportive? So they may be visiting the sick, the elderly, that kind of a thing. They can pick up on people's emotions. So they may reach out to you if you are upset. They may help another animal in your home if that animal is upset. When I think about that with animal communication, something that sometimes comes up can be animals that are so supportive of us that they sometimes they overdo it energetically for themselves, and they take on sometimes too much if we allow them to, or we lean too much on them for emotional support. That's a little bit of a kind of a balance that we have to maintain, because a lot of animals actually feel that that's part of their journey on this earth, is to be there for us. I mean, I have a cat, Gracie, who's very supportive. She comes to me if I'm upset. In fact, she'll come from another room if I'm upset, like with no reason other than intuitively to know that I'm upset. And so I would say that she has elements of this. I actually think she's metal, but I think she has maybe a sub-earth. So we have to just be mindful of not putting too much stuff on this, of our stuff on these animals, not letting them take too much on, because that can then result in imbalance for them. We, of course, don't want that. But don't make yourself paranoid about it. So they're going to be agreeable. They're going to be sort of attentive. Their body types tend to be rather solid and dense. And if you think about that, if they're the types that are here to like support and be there for others, they may tend to be more dense and solid for that reason. They have a more like steady, even personality as well. Now, sometimes if they get if it gets to be too earth, if it gets exaggerated, they can become almost like hovering, like the hovering mother. They can become clingy. But when it's in a healthy state, they're going with the flow. They're thriving in social situation. But if it gets exaggerated, they can't say no, and they overdo it. Too sympathetic, too involved. So they also might not stand up for themselves. So if you brought, say, go back to the wolf example, go back to, oh, hello. Hi, Seeking the Truth with Dave. Dave, it's so nice to see you here. Dave is here from Australia. I can't even imagine what time it is there. It's so nice to see you here. Dave has a wonderful true crime show. I mentioned it last week. If you like true crime, you have to check out Seeking the Truth with Dave. He's absolutely wonderful. He's one of the best ones out there, so check that out. These animals can lack confidence. So I was talking about that wolf type, that wood. If they become too forceful, for example, that might be too much for your little nurturing earth over here. So, just keep that in mind. You may need to get in there and try to balance things out. And keep that in mind if you're looking to adopt and incorporate these animals into your home. So make sure that you're just helping them with, meeting their needs, making sure that you know their needs. So, I think of animal communication as a great way to be in touch with their needs and finding out what's going on with them, because they're kind of the type that maybe won't express their needs as much. They can become overweight too. I kind of think of that as like all of these things. I think most people can see the correlation between people having these characteristics. And this came, I don't know if when they were developing this thousands of years ago, that they were observing, all of traditional Chinese medicine, there was all this observation, and I'm not sure, what exactly they pulled in from actually, animals themselves. They certainly got things from nature, but the traditional Chinese medicine model and acupuncture and all of that, of course, was practiced on people initially. And then we sort of incorporate it with animals, but we see an absolute relationship with it, just like I could see fire element with my cat. I mean, my dog Cheyenne. And I see like wood with my dog Kane. So I had some point there. So I'm thinking about earth element as tending to be the person who's like maybe the counselor, that kind of a person. And sometimes people who are like intuitive and counseling and things like that, they tend to get, sometimes they're heavier because they're kind of eating to build up this wall. Like it said, they can be more dense and round because they're putting up this protective barrier physically. So that's kind of maybe a way to think about it. That can happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but I'm just saying that I've seen that. So you can also see a lack of focus or awareness or obsessiveness due to worry with these animals if they get out of balance. Physical problems could be these personalities may suffer from abdominal issues or hormonal problems, water retention, lethargy, low stamina, weak immune system, an unruly appetite, stomach ulcers, and colic due to becoming out of balance. Okay, so next, second to last is, my little stand almost fell over, metal element. So I'm gonna bring in one of my photos here that's gonna help you, kind of illustrates it, the metal element. Okay, so metal element, the reason I chose this picture is because metal element types, they tend to be very good with structure. They're very particular. They tend to have a strong, somewhat angular and tall structure. And I'm thinking of this because this image made me think of that because of this horse being, of course it just looks strong, and also the organs are lung and large intestine, and in traditional Chinese medicine those are actually associated with skin. The reason is because you're breathing in through the nose. That's the sense organ associated in traditional Chinese medicine with this element, and when you're breathing in, the idea is that it's the lung qi is said to descend down, and then it goes into the body hairs, the pores of the skin. The qi stabilizes the lungs, and that actually does help the skin and body hairs. So oh, thank you so much, Dave, for sharing my, oh yep, people are popping in, thank you, because you shared it probably. Hi Annette, thank you so much. You're eating a borin salad. I don't know what that is, but it's maybe something Australian. I don't know. It's nice to have some Australian friends here tonight. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that so much. So this season is autumn. Thank you. I do hope I can get to 1,000 subs. That's kind of been a long haul here to get there, but I appreciate anybody who's helping me. Thank you so much for doing that. So the emotion is grief, and I'll get to that in a moment, but think lung, grief, sorrow, and white is the color. And these animals could be great during training because they're very good with problem solving. They like structure. They have good discernment. So training can be very good for them, and it could be a good sort of stimulating, good for their minds to have that kind of focus. So as I was thinking about it, because aerobic exercise seems to be a good one for strengthening the lungs, of course. But talk to your vet about this. But I think that if you could incorporate some of that, this would be good for your metal element pets. These animals may appear to be wise because they think about things and they problem solve. If they do, however, get out of balance, they may become very irritated if things don't go their way, and they can almost become like stubborn and may even seem petty or spiteful if they're upset about something that you did or that another animal did. They could seem sloppy in their training, and they could seem restless because of this. They can have difficulty if they get out of balance with connecting with humans and other animals, and they may seem aloof. And that just might be a characteristic of them too when they're not even completely out of balance. It's just kind of part of their characteristic is a little bit of aloofness. They may have a tendency to want a lot of control as well. Change could be an issue for these animals because they really like things just to remain steady, and they're not going to like a sudden shift. So if you suddenly take them to someone else's house, for instance, you just like throw them in the car and we're going somewhere new and bam, so this is where animal communication comes into play sometimes, where we help to prepare animals for change. Oh, I'm so sorry, Danielle, to see that your dog passed away Monday. This has been a rough week. I've actually had several people that I've worked with who pets have passed away this week, and I really just want to take a moment to say I'm so sorry if you're going through a loss of a pet this week. It really is just so hard. It's heartbreaking. It's so difficult. So these animals can actually really, speaking of which, they can suffer from grief or sorrow that goes on for a long time. And it's interesting actually that we're talking about this, because you could have a pet who's lost a pet sibling or a pet partner, and their grief and their sorrow could go on longer for a metal element animal. So it's something to be mindful of if you have a metal element pet, that could be a bigger issue for them. Because sometimes people will say to me, I'm worried about my animal, we just lost our dog, and I will connect in with that dog that's partner of 8 years recently passed, and they'll say to me that they're doing okay, and they're okay, they understand what's going on. And then I'll talk to another one, and they'll actually be having a really hard time and be very upset, so very depressed. So they're just like us. They can have a range of different reactions to loss. Yeah, very difficult. I'm so sorry. So think about the fact that the fall is when we kind of slow down. The excitement of summer is over. Where maybe you think about kind of pulling in, preferring maybe you think about a smaller group of friends, maybe instead of being outside in a big crowd. And with metal element, even past hurts and trust violations can be a bigger issue than with some of the other elements. So that could be difficult for a pet that you're bringing into your home with bonding. So that could be the reason that maybe an animal who's new in your life or has been in your life for a while, and you're saying, well, why is this animal have such a hard time trusting me? It could be because they're of the metal element. Okay, what else? So I think maybe that's all there is with metal, except that I haven't talked to you about their health problems. So, talking about how this is related to lung in particular, so respiratory conditions, asthma, coughs, neck stiffness, because often when we talk about it's the upper body, so it's often both a combination of the location can have something to do with where, if I'm saying this, I'm not sure I'm wording this very well, but so neck stiffness relates to lung as well. Because of the location of the meridian. So also lymphatic circulation issues. And I didn't talk too much about meridians actually in the beginning. Meridians, if you're not sure what they are, they're sort of like these channels that run throughout the body, and all the different organs have different meridians that have different sort of pathways or like patterns to them. They can be sensitive to climate. As I said, they can have the opposite. I think I said they can have a very nice coat like this horse, but the opposite would be that they are out of balance and they have skin problems in a dull coat. They can have teeth issues, constipation, diarrhea, so GI issues. They can have a weak immune system, and wrist problems, allergies. So these are all things that could be going on. But something that could help them in particular is doing training that they can feel good about. something that provides them with goals and structure. And their wood and metal are similar in a sense that they both have this sort of they both have these kind of abilities to get stuff done, but the wood element is more of a force. They're more like going to go out and do it more in a forceful way, especially if they get like a little bit out of balance, as I was saying, whereas metal element is more like precise and more thoughtful about how they're doing it, I guess, is the way I would put it. So the final element is water element. Come on, water. Okay. So if you have a pet who is water element, you may see them as having sort of an old soul. They may be you may see them as like sort of wise, and they're sort of reflective a little bit to themselves, kind of private, off in their own world sometimes, and tending to be a little bit more introverted. This, of course, was a good representation for that because the turtle tends to be more of a solitary animal. And, we think of the turtle with a shell, and that's like sort of protective, private. They tend to have a body structure that's kind of puffy and round. The organ associated with water is kidney, bladder. Winter is the season. The emotion can be fear. Blue or like a dark or black. Dark blue or black can be the color we associate with it, or is the color we associate with it. I probably should have made my water a little darker, the word water. This sense organ, as we call it, is ear. Body tissue would be bone, marrow. And when we think about the water element, they are, as I mentioned, sort of introspective. So you may find that your water element pet likes to be in their own space, have their own time, and they don't mind their own company. They might not be the type that's going to come out and ask for help if there's something wrong with them, for instance. So maybe you're going to think of a cat in the situation, but it isn't really all cats. This is definitely a personality type. They may, if they're out of balance, seem indecisive, fearful, and paranoid. And they can be a little bit more unforgiving. This sort of tendency to be off on their own can make it difficult to form relationships. And however, they can be very loyal. That's kind of the other side of it. If they find those that they trust and like, then the flip side of that is that they may be very loyal. They may have resource protection issues. So if you have an animal who's a water, say a dog with water element, that dog may have resource issues with guarding its food. They may have excessive or chronic anxiety and some fear issues. However, they have good perception and retain information well, so that obviously can be a benefit with an animal that you are maybe working to, if you want it to be of a certain type of behavior in your home. They're going to remember what you've taught them better. If you're working on training, then that's a good thing, obviously. And interesting, if I talk to an animal who's a water element, they may come across as more straightforward in their communication. So this is kind of like the way wood is too. So just more blunt. So they also sort of gather data about the world. So they're sort of like thinking and watching you in your home and sort of thinking about what's going on. So that's just an interesting attribute of these animals. All of the animals tend to do that to some degree, but these tend to do it more. they like their brain stimulated. So it's nice if you can come up with some training exercises that are brain stimulating exercises. You know, those brain sort of toys that they have for these guys, or for dogs, and cats too, and horses, and whoever you have, whatever you have. You know, hopefully you can find something that might be more of a brain focused exercise. They may not be as, they may not want to be sociable as much. So, you know, be mindful if you're thinking about bringing other pets into the home and you have a water animal, that that's going to be the right decision. So that might be where some, you know, real animal communication conversations come in. We talk to them about that, if that's something they want or not. And, you know, if it ends up being something that you want to do and you both decide that it's the right time, maybe it's a certain type of animal that's going to be not so in their face and will be willing to give them their space. And also think about that with people in your home. So this might, you know, if you're coming across a water animal, if you can think about this when you're thinking about bringing an animal into your home, and you have sort of a home with like screaming children, and, you know, it might not be the right situation for them. So you might also find, though, that because this can, their solitary nature can be maybe too much and get them out of balance, that you may actually want to do a little bit of planned time for them. You know, make sure that they do have some kind of socialization, but make sure it's, you know, the right kind of personality for them. Sometimes these animals can struggle with confidence. They can get to be a little bit pessimistic, so negative. They can be a little bit absent-minded. So some of us have animals where we see that, where they're like a little bit, you know, just, you just can kind of see it in your pet. You know, of course, it's just a characteristic you can see. You know, it's not like us humans where we can say, well, she's always losing her keys, but, you know, you can just kind of identify it. So the reason kidneys, it's interesting the way, I love the way traditional Chinese medicine thinks about this. Kidneys, you know, holding water, so holding the resources, so keeping the thought, you're thinking, you're holding the thoughts in. I've heard, you know, one of the people, they'll do these things where they'll talk about, well, what famous person would you think of? Well, like Kurt Cobain is one that they think of when they talk about water. Physical issues, lower back soreness, I think, you know, kidneys, arthritis, urinary issues, reproductive issues, development issues. And that's pretty much, and they can be also they can be particular too. So any questions about that? We went through all of the 5 elements, and that's just an overview. You can get deep into it because there's all this other stuff with 5 elements about, sort of like, one example I'll give you is, well, I talked a little bit about how, like, earth is the mother of wood. So am I saying that right? Now I'm getting ditzy because it's like almost 8 o'clock at night here and I'm getting tired. But you have like mother-child relationships, and it begins to make more sense as you study it, but it can be very confusing at first. That's why I didn't want to get into all that. But you know, metal kind of can destroy wood, because you think of like a metal object like cutting through wood. It's just, it goes kind of all over the place, but it's a whole like way to do acupuncture or acupressure, or I guess to do herbs. I don't do herbs myself, but so I don't know, I think it's very interesting. I'm wondering if anybody in the chat is seeing that any of their animals relates to any of these, or even if you see that you see yourself in any of these. I'm wondering. I think you know, it was funny because I was kind of going over some of this with my husband in the room, and I've always said to him, I think he's a wood person. And one of the things that came up is that water, of course, nourishes wood. It was talking about, and I'm probably water, possibly with some earth. So it's a good balance that we're together. So I've described Gabby as water. Yeah, I could see Gabby the dog as water. I know Gabby. That's actually my mother's dog. I think I was thinking that too when I was doing this. This is Lisa. Oreo I see as earth, fire, and wood. He falls into all three. I was thinking about Oreo too because of this, because of the therapy dog aspect of it, and the earth being supportive and going out and doing his therapy work. And then also, right, he has that part of him, that fire, and wood. He's very, like, he's got that, that like alpha side to him. I was thinking about him. Yep. I wonder, and Chloe I wonder about, because I would say metal and water, but she loves being around animals. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how they can kind of cross over, but you usually do have one that's primary. And I think I see how Oreo would be probably primary earth. Although maybe fire. No, probably earth. I don't know, fire maybe. Interesting. We talked about Oreo. He came on and he did an animal I spoke with him on one of these episodes, and I think he was in another one before that too that wasn't live, but I did a Furry Fursday with him. So anybody else? Dave, I think about you as maybe a water, actually. I don't know. I mean, I don't know you that well, but it's funny because I have never met Dave. He's an Australian, but I've seen so many of his YouTubes and know him, in a sense personally, but through text, I guess, but like, phone text and that kind of thing. But, I kind of think of you as being a kind of a water, but I don't know. I don't know you that well. I'm wondering what you think, if you're still even there, but you might have had to go to work at this point. So I don't know. I think this is so fascinating, and it really can help you make decisions too about food even. There's a whole component of this too that you can figure out what type of food is going to be best for your pet. And there's, you can really get into that. So I would recommend too, if you're interested, I do have a link for tall grass resources. That's where I went to acupressure school. I have a link in the description with a discount associated with it. If you want to look into their resources, there's some other books out there too. You can, kind of Google this stuff if you want to learn more about it. And it can really help you to better understand your pets, and yourself and your family members. So I don't see anybody who's wanting to do any animal communication tonight. I don't see anyone jumping in. So I'm kind of thinking I will call it a night, and I'm hoping I didn't forget anything. Knowing me, I did. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So I'm probably going to disconnect and realize that. But I do appreciate everybody who is here tonight. And, if you have any, let me know if you have any revelations. Put it in the comments. If you're watching this after, please, mention in the comments what you came up with. If you have any questions, but if you have any pets that you made any associations with, let us know what your pet is. If they're, what element you think they might be. We'd love to hear about that. Annette, oops, I almost accidentally banned you, Annette. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me make sure I don't do that. May I ask why my dog gets aggressive when someone goes to leave after he's fine with them in the home? Wait a minute. May I ask why my dog gets aggressive when someone goes to leave after he's fine with them in the home after meeting a new person? So, okay, so a new person comes in. I'm curious, you don't have to, but if you're able to either use the link to put the phone on them, or so we can see them, I can send you a link. If that's not going to work for you right now, it's fine for you to do that. Not do that. You could just send me the name of your dog in the chat, and I can. It's nice to have a picture, but yes, I do, Angie. Oh, I didn't send the link. This is what I mean. Memory. Oh, he's under a table. Okay. Rafael. Okay. Okay, so Rafael is your dog. I wish there was a way to just attach a picture here. Okay, so, well, that's okay. So where do we go? So Raphael, he gets aggressive when someone goes to leave. So he meets the person, and then they leave, and then he gets aggressive. Okay. I know this is like the worst part. The only thing I cannot figure out about this show is how to. You can always fast forward if you're watching the replay. I know it's boring to sit here and watch me communicate. I do not know what to do about it. Okay, Angie, I will come back to that one. I'm sorry. So when I communicate with animals, I do almost like a stream of consciousness. So sometimes things won't make sense to me, and I just say them as I get them, because sometimes the most important things are things that don't mean anything to me. So what I'm seeing happen is your dog focusing on their shoes. It feels it does feel dominating. I'm trying to understand why, though, when they're leaving, because there's a domineering aspect to it. The way that it's just being shown to me is that he's trying to dominate them as they leave, and it's like, you are now, I kind of own you now. Well, like I do own you now, because animals are pretty, like, it's kind of black and white with them. But it's energy, so if that makes sense. So it's animal energy of dominating the person when they leave. To me, it's like he's telling them what to do. I would almost associate it if he was like, I'm not saying he is a herding dog. I don't know what he is, but because I'm watching this as the person's leaving. But it's almost like that herding dog kind of a thing. Like, I'm telling you what to do now. Like, you came into my home. I let you in. You came in here. You were in my energy. And now you're leaving, and I need now to direct you and tell you what to do. Okay, so I see, thank you. I tend to pick him up because of that, so the person can leave. I guess you have to. Okay, so he's a Yorkiepoo. So little guy. Yeah, that's his thing. I guess you have to, because how else are the people gonna leave with this little guy going at them? I don't know if there's much I can tell him that it's we'd like him to stop. And I explain to people, when it comes to behaviors that are difficult or animals are like, displaying stuff we don't want them to be doing, I will tell them what we want of them. And I recommend that people, sort of like homework, to keep showing the animal what you want them to do. We can tell them what we want. It doesn't mean they're just we snap our fingers and they do it. It's just like anybody else. Animals have a will of their own. Yeah, he's never bitten anyone, but that's good. He's never bitten anyone. That's going for him. That's good. So, but I would keep doing that to reinforce it. I'm sure you've tried things like just putting him in another room when people leave and behavioral stuff, but this is, of course, the animal communication end of it is just that energy. So, yeah, that's what I get. Okay. So then we did have Dalton. Oh, died June 17th. Okay, so let me... Angie, I'm just going to take a sip of water here. He was 12. Okay. Whoa. I wonder if he's okay now and at peace. Okay. Angie, where are you located? I like to have some kind of it's nice to have some connection. And what kind of breed is he? Since I don't have a picture or anything. You don't have to, but it's just nice. Take another sip. Seems very sweet, though. Oh, okay. Good night, Annette. Thank you for being here. Virtual hug. Thank you. I get this like floppy gray and white shaggy guy. Corgi, a Chihuahua, Illinois. Oh, I was reading it. Illinois Chihuahua Corgi. So it wasn't gray. Illinois. You're in Illinois. He was a Chihuahua Corgi. That's interesting. Okay. But he strikes me as very sweet. You're welcome, Annette. Thank you. So fast forward if you're watching the replay. Watch for my mouth to start moving again. The first thing he shows me is him walking on the street. It's like he's saying to me, that's how I want to make my connection with you right now. That's how I want to make you think of me as walking on the street. And once again, I just give people what I get, so that, that doesn't really mean much to me because a lot of dogs walk on the street, but it could mean something to you. So but the feeling associated with him walking down the street and you're with him, there's a sense of like, I'm free, I'm very happy, I'm very, like, his head's up and he's very, like, life's a beach now. And that's the video he's giving me. That's the sort of the movie that he's giving me associated with that. So I don't know if that means anything particular to you, but that's how he shows it to me. It's definitely the feeling, though, is that he's, regardless of how you take that in, like if it means something in particular, of him walking with you on the street, he is giving me a definite
confirmation that he's joyful and happy. Confident is also the word that comes across as important. And then I hear he wants you to sleep well. And he says, take your time. So I do feel that take your time is about grief, like taking time and not feeling like you have to push it. There's definitely, though, like I get a very peaceful wave come over my heart center, and that's what he wants you to like internalize. I get him saying that he wants you to feel what that feels like by taking a deep breath and feeling that come over you, like a peaceful energy. Because he's free. He's in a happy place. So I don't know if that is helpful. I don't know if if you have any other questions about it, but that's kind of what he sends me. Angie. But thank you for asking that and sharing about that you had lost your little baby, Dalton. I have to tell everybody, often people ask me if their animal is at peace. I've never had an animal personally in my animal communication career tell me they're not at peace. They're pure souls, and I just feel they are okay. So he he loved to go. I wish we had a picture of him. He loved to go on walks. He thought he was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. I feel guilty because I got another dog 6 days after I died. I felt I betrayed him. Aw. I would not. I don't want to tell you how to feel, but I will tell you that I got my dog Cheyenne 10 days after I lost my dog Misha. And I really believe strongly that you have to do what you have to do, what you need to do. And I think that they're little gifts. I can't imagine I can't imagine if I had not gotten Cheyenne, because now looking back 8 years later, if I hadn't gotten her out of guilt, I think that that they want us to be taken care of here, and they wouldn't want us to not have that comfort of a new animal. And when I ask him about this, no, I feel like it kind of shoots through me, like this feeling in my stomach. And absolutely, this was, it's like a lightning bolt goes through me. I think he absolutely wanted you to have this dog. I feel like in some way he was involved in it, not wanting you to be without that support. He wanted you to have that. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay. When our dog passed, this is what she wrote. When our dog passed, our last words to her were, we would rescue another dog and give them the same love and happiness we gave her. I mean, yeah, and that's a wonderful way to honor them too. To, um, to give another animal a home, and imagine you don't do it, and there is an animal that needs a home. I don't think they want that. Animals aren't like that. They're not petty. They're not. My hubby's mom came to my hubby in a dream with Dalton. She was holding him, and she said to my husband, "He is with us now. He's okay." Oh, that made me feel better and gave me peace. Oh, that's really nice. I could see how that would give you peace. That's really nice. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. He sounds like a really special guy. And you got a pug named Buddy. Oh, he has a lot of Dalton's ways. It's weird. I do feel Dalton through my new dog. Yeah, I think he was involved in that. Very sweet. So, yeah. I hope that answered your question. I don't see another question, so I think it did. And I don't see any other questions, so I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight and sharing with anybody who's shared here tonight. I really do appreciate it. And once again, if you can help out the show, the only way we grow and let other people know about this stuff is by liking and subscribing. It's the only way that YouTube lets other people know about it. They don't just reach out and find me and show me. They have to have other people do it like you. So I greatly appreciate it more than you know when you do that. So if you want to reach me too for any questions or personal private work that you want to do, animal communication, massage, acupressure, energy work, anything, I'm at Intuitive Touch. I forgot to put my little screen thing on here, but Intuitive Touch, animalcare.com. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so good. Do you feel Dalton's spirit through Buddy? Cool. Yeah, or you can email me at am@intuitivetouchanimalcare.com. And thank you all so much for being here, and have a wonderful evening. And if you want me to talk with your animal next week for Furry Fursdays, it's great if you can come on the show. So just please be prepared to, if you can, send I send a link through the chat, and you can use that to have your phone pointed at your pet. If you don't think you're going to want to do that, you can send me a photograph ahead of time at intuitivetouchanimalcare.com. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and have a wonderful evening, weekend, day, whatever.